For 1,000 years, the Zorith Empire ruled the galaxy with fear. Their warships were larger than cities. Their soldiers were bred only for battle. Entire star systems paid tribute just to survive. No one challenged them. No one even spoke against them. Until the day a single human stood inside the Imperial Council chamber. The hall was massive. Black stone walls reached high into darkness. Golden banners of conquered worlds hung from the ceiling like trophies. Alien leaders filled the seats in silence. At the center, on a floating throne of dark metal, sat Emperor Karel of Zorith. And before him stood a human. He was not tall. He wore no armor. No weapons. Just a simple dark uniform with the Terran symbol on his chest. The guards expected him to kneel. He did not. Whispers spread across the chamber. Humans were new to galactic politics. Young. Emotional. Weak. The Empire had already taken 3 human colonies in a single week. Thousands were dead. The message was clear. Obey. Or be erased. The human ambassador lifted his head and looked directly at the Emperor. His voice was calm. Not loud. Not angry. You wanted my people to come and beg, he said. The Emperor's eyes glowed. Yes. Instead of kneeling, the human took one slow step forward. You want war, the human said quietly. For a second, there was silence. Then the chamber exploded with laughter. The alien council members leaned back in their seats. Some even mocked him openly. A few recorded the moment for entertainment. A human threatening the Zorith Empire was the greatest joke they had heard in years. Emperor Karel raised one clawed hand and the laughter stopped. You misunderstand your position, the Emperor said. Your colonies burn. Your fleets retreat. Your species trembles. You are in no place to speak of war. The human's face did not change. Behind him, holographic images appeared in the air. Burning cities. Broken ships. Human civilians running from Zorith soldiers. We have seen what you do, the human said softly. We have studied your empire. We know how you conquer. We know how you break worlds. The Emperor leaned forward. And you still think you can resist? The human's eyes grew colder. No, he answered. We know we cannot win the way others tried. That made the room quiet again. The council members looked at each other. The human continued. But humans are not like the others. He waved his hand, and the holograms changed. Now they showed human shipyards deep in space. Fleets under construction. Weapons being assembled in silence. The Emperor's expression darkened. We are slow to anger, the human said. We avoid war whenever we can. We offer peace first. He paused. But once we accept war, we do not stop. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. The Emperor stood from his throne, towering above the human. Are you threatening me? Karel demanded. The human finally allowed a small, almost sad smile. No. I am warning you. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons. You attacked our homes, the human said. You executed civilians to send a message. You thought fear would make us kneel. He shook his head slowly. You do not understand humanity. The Emperor signaled his guards to move closer. Speak your final words carefully, human, he growled. The human ambassador looked around the massive chamber one last time. At the banners of fallen worlds. At the alien leaders who believed they were untouchable. Then he looked back at the Emperor. If war is what you want, he said clearly, then humanity will not survive it. A few council members smiled. But the human's next words removed those smiles. But neither will you. Silence filled the chamber again. For the first time, the Emperor did not laugh. The human turned around and walked toward the exit without permission. No one stopped him. Because something in his voice felt different. Not fear. Not anger. Promise. Far beyond the capital world, hidden in deep space, massive human fleets were already moving into position. Shipyards worked without rest. Artificial intelligence systems calculated battle patterns. Old defense platforms powered on for the first time in decades. Humanity had not come to beg. They had come to give one last chance. The Empire did not take it. And soon, the galaxy would learn what happens when humans stop asking for peace. The Zorith Empire waited for fear to spread across human space. They expected panic. They expected surrender. They expected the Terran government to send another ambassador, this time on their knees. Instead, something strange happened. Human space went quiet. Trade routes that were once full of cargo ships became empty. Civilian signals disappeared. Mining colonies stopped transmitting reports. Even small farming worlds powered down their communication arrays. To the Empire, it looked like weakness. They are hiding, one Zorith general said proudly. They have accepted defeat. Emperor Karel agreed. Increase patrols near their borders. Let them feel our shadow. Imperial fleets moved closer to Terran space. Massive warships formed blockades around captured colonies. They waited for the humans to break. But humans did not break. They prepared. Deep inside an asteroid belt far from any known star lane, enormous shipyards floated in darkness. Sparks of light flashed across metal hulls the size of mountains. Thousands of workers moved with purpose. No loud speeches. No panic. Just focus. New warships were being built. Not larger than Zorith ships. Smarter. Faster. More flexible. Human engineers had studied every recorded battle of the Empire. Every tactic. Every formation pattern. Every weakness. They did not try to copy the Empire. They built something different. Artificial intelligence systems learned from past defeats. They ran millions of battle simulations every second. They searched for patterns in Zorith strategy. And they found them. The Empire believed in power and intimidation. They moved in large formations. They relied on fear to break their enemies early. Humans decided they would not give them that chance. Across Terran worlds, civilians were relocated underground. Planetary shields were upgraded. Hidden defense platforms were activated in deep space. Even older ships, once used only for cargo, were refitted with weapons. But the most important change was invisible. Unity. Old rival nations on Earth ended their conflicts overnight. Political arguments stopped. Military leaders from every colony shared information without pride or jealousy. The Empire thought humans were divided. They were wrong. In orbit around Mars, Admiral Rena Volkov watched a holographic map of the galaxy. Red markers showed Zorith fleets. Blue markers showed Terran forces. There were fewer blue lights. Much fewer. A young officer beside her looked nervous. Admiral, their numbers are 5 times ours. Rena nodded calmly. Numbers are not victory. Then what is? The officer asked. She pointed to several blinking points near the border. Timing. At that moment, far inside Imperial-controlled territory, something unexpected happened. A Zorith scout fleet entered what they believed was abandoned human space. Long-range scans had shown nothing for weeks. No signals. No movement. The scout commander laughed as they crossed the border. Cowards, he muttered. Then their sensors began to fail. First, communication interference. Then navigation errors. Then complete silence from their own rear ships. Before the commander could react, space itself seemed to bend. Hidden gravity traps activated. Mines ignited without warning. Human strike ships appeared from dark space like shadows. They did not broadcast threats. They did not demand surrender. They attacked with precision. Within 6 minutes, the entire scout fleet was destroyed. No survivors. No distress signal. Back in the Imperial capital, the scout fleet's signal simply vanished. Zorith officials blamed equipment failure. Or pirates. Or human desperation. They refused to consider the truth. This was not panic. This was testing. Humans were measuring response time. Measuring weakness. Measuring fear. Days later, another Imperial patrol disappeared. Then another. Each time, silent. Each time, clean. Emperor Karel felt irritation growing. They are insects, he said angrily. Prepare a full assault. We will crush their remaining fleets and end this. But Admiral Volkov was already 3 moves ahead. Human fleets were not defending territory. They were shaping the battlefield. Drawing the Empire deeper. Spreading their forces thin. In the darkness between stars, thousands of Terran ships powered up at once. Engines glowed softly. Weapons systems locked into readiness. Admiral Volkov gave a simple order. Phase 1 begins. No dramatic music. No loud announcement. Just quiet determination. The Empire had wanted war. Humanity had accepted. And they would fight it in a way the galaxy had never seen before. The Zorith Empire decided to end the silence with fire. If humans would not come out and fight like warriors, the Empire would drag them into the open. A massive Imperial fleet entered the Helios sector, one of the outer human systems. Their ships were enormous, shaped like dark spears. Their engines burned like red stars. Behind them followed troop carriers filled with soldiers ready to occupy another world. Helios 4 was small. It had no large military presence. Only research stations and farming colonies. The perfect target. Imperial cannons fired without warning. Orbital platforms exploded in seconds. Defense satellites shattered like glass. The planet's shield flickered and failed under heavy bombardment. Across the Empire, the attack was broadcast as proof of power. Behold, the Imperial announcer declared, the fate of those who defy the Zorith. The Emperor watched with satisfaction as Helios 4 burned. This will break their spirit, he said. But on the surface of Helios 4, something unexpected happened. There were no mass evacuations. No chaotic retreat. The cities were already empty. The Empire had destroyed structures. But not people. When Imperial troops landed, they found abandoned streets. Silent research labs. Farming fields left untouched. It felt wrong. Then the sky changed. Without warning, 3 human warships exited warp directly behind the Imperial fleet. They were smaller than Zorith cruisers. Their hulls were smooth and dark. No visible weapon mounts. No heavy armor plating. The Zorith admiral laughed when he saw them. Only 3, he mocked. He never finished the sentence. The human ships moved faster than any Imperial scanner could track. They split apart in perfect formation. Blue light flashed across their surfaces as energy systems activated. Then space itself twisted. Instead of attacking the front of the Imperial fleet, the humans struck its spine. Precise strikes hit command vessels first. Communication arrays exploded. Targeting systems shut down across multiple ships at once. Imperial formations collapsed into confusion. The humans were not fighting for glory. They were hunting. One human ship launched drones that attached to Imperial hulls like insects. Seconds later, power systems overloaded from inside. Engines died. Weapons failed. Another Terran vessel released a wave of digital interference. Entire sections of the Zorith fleet began firing on false targets created by human hacking systems. Panic spread quickly. The Zorith admiral ordered full retaliation. But his command ship suddenly lost artificial gravity. Officers were thrown across the bridge. Screens went dark. The final image he saw was a human cruiser aligning directly in front of his flagship. It fired once. The explosion was clean and controlled. Within 12 minutes, one of the Empire's strongest fleets was broken. The remaining Zorith ships tried to retreat. But hidden Terran vessels emerged from asteroid cover and cut off escape routes. Not one Imperial capital ship survived. Above Helios 4, the 3 original human warships remained still, watching the battlefield drift in silent debris. On Earth, Admiral Volkov received the report. "Casualties?" she asked. "Minimal," her officer replied. "Helios population was evacuated 3 days ago." Rena nodded. "Good. Send the message." Moments later, a secure transmission was broadcast across every known galactic frequency. It showed the wreckage of the Zorith fleet floating in space. Then the same human ambassador from the Imperial Council appeared on screen. His face was calm. "You attacked civilians to show power," he said. "We attacked your fleet to show restraint." The word restraint echoed across the galaxy. On the Imperial capital world, Emperor Karel watched the transmission in silence. For the first time in his reign, doubt crept into his mind. The humans had not responded with rage. They had responded with control. And that frightened him more than anger ever could. Around the galaxy, oppressed species began to whisper. If the Zorith fleet could fall. Was the Empire truly invincible? Back in Terran space, more fleets powered up. Phase 1 had succeeded. The Empire had made its first true mistake. They believed Helios 4 was a victory. But it was not. It was bait. And now the Empire was angry. Angry enemies make careless decisions. Humanity was counting on it. The destruction of the Helios fleet did not bring fear to the Zorith Empire. It brought rage. Emperor Karel stood before the shattered remains of his command council. Holograms of burning ships still floated in the air. His generals argued loudly, blaming each other for failure. Humans use tricks, one general growled. They hide behind machines. They fight without honor, another said. Karel slammed his claw against the throne armrest. The chamber fell silent. Then we will crush them with overwhelming force, he declared. Mobilize the Grand Armada. Across Imperial space, alarms sounded. Massive shipyards began launching warships that had not moved in decades. Ancient battlecruisers, once used to conquer entire sectors, powered up again. The Grand Armada was the pride of the Empire, a force so large that no species had ever survived its advance. This time, it would not be a raid. It would be extermination. Meanwhile, in human space, Admiral Volkov watched the same reports. The Armada is moving, her officer said quietly. Their numbers are extreme. Rena studied the holographic map. Red markers flooded toward Terran borders like a tidal wave. She did not look afraid. Good, she replied. Around her, human commanders activated Phase 2. Hidden signals were sent across the galaxy. On dozens of occupied worlds, resistance cells received a single encrypted message, now. For years, many species had lived under Zorith rule. They had been forced to work, to serve, to obey. They had watched their cultures fade. But they had also been watching the humans. The fall of the Helios fleet had spread hope like wildfire. When the Grand Armada left its core territories to march on humanity, it left something behind. Vulnerability. Across imperial worlds, uprisings exploded. Factories were sabotaged. Supply depots destroyed. Communication towers disabled. Slave worlds revolted all at once. The Empire suddenly faced fires inside its own walls. Kal-El received reports every hour. Rebellion in Sector 9. Shipyard destruction in Kal-El Prime. Supply chain collapse near the eastern border. The Emperor's rage turned to unease. This is coincidence, he insisted. But it was not. Human intelligence had quietly built alliances. Not open alliances with flags and treaties, but quiet support. Smuggled weapons. Shared information. Escape routes. Humans did not just fight battles. They changed momentum. Still, the Grand Armada pushed forward. Thousands of Zorith ships entered Terran space like a dark storm. Their formation blocked out the stars. Planets trembled as orbital defenses prepared for impact. At the edge of the Sol system, human fleets gathered. They were still outnumbered. By far. Young officers stared at the enemy armada on their screens. "It's bigger than anything recorded," one whispered. Admiral Volkov spoke calmly. "They expect us to defend Earth directly," she said. "They believe we will gather everything here for one final stand." She tapped a command into her console. Human fleets began to split apart. To Imperial observers, it looked like fear. Like retreat. The Grand Armada accelerated toward Earth. But as they advanced deeper, something strange happened. Their supply ships stopped responding. Rear guard vessels disappeared from formation. Long-range scanners began detecting phantom signals, fleets that appeared and vanished. Then the traps activated. Hidden minefields ignited behind the Armada, cutting off retreat. Artificial gravity distortions fractured their formations. Human strike groups attacked isolated sections, then vanished before full retaliation. The Zorith ships were powerful. But they were slow. And they were not used to fighting enemies who refused to stand still. Instead of one giant battle, the Armada was being sliced apart piece by piece. Days turned into chaos. Imperial captains could no longer coordinate properly. Communication interference blocked clear commands. Rebel attacks in their own territories disrupted reinforcements. For the first time in centuries, the Zorith Empire was fighting on multiple fronts, and losing control. At the heart of the chaos, a human fleet appeared near the capital world's outer defenses. Not to attack. To be seen. The same human ambassador appeared once more on all Imperial channels. Behind him floated hundreds of Terran warships. "You asked for war," he said quietly. On his bridge, Admiral Volkov gave the final command for Phase 3. Across the galaxy, synchronized strikes hit the Empire's core military infrastructure at once. Fuel reserves detonated. Defense grids collapsed. The Grand Armada, once unstoppable, was now scattered and burning across Terran space. For the first time in history, the giants of the galaxy were falling. And everyone was watching. The Zorith Empire had never known defeat. They had known resistance. They had known rebellion. But those flames had always been small. Easy to crush. This fire was different. It spread everywhere. The Grand Armada was no longer a single force. It was broken, scattered across human space. Some ships tried to retreat. Others fought alone. Many simply drifted without command. Emperor Kal-El stood in the highest tower of his capital city, staring at a sky filled with emergency signals. His advisors spoke in panic. Rebel forces have taken 3 inner systems. Fuel reserves at Korth Station have exploded. 2 admirals have gone silent. Kal-El felt something he had not felt in centuries. Uncertainty. "They are only humans," one advisor whispered, almost begging. But the Emperor now understood the truth. Humans were not trying to win through power. They were dismantling the Empire piece by piece. In deep orbit around the capital world, Terran fleets appeared without warning. Hundreds of ships formed a silent wall beyond the planet's outer defense grid. They did not fire. They did not move closer. They simply waited. On the main Imperial screen, a familiar human face appeared once again. The ambassador. His uniform was slightly damaged now. A small scar marked his cheek. But his voice remained calm. "This is your final chance," he said. "End the war. Withdraw your forces. Free the occupied worlds." Kal-El's claws tightened around his throne. "You threaten extinction," the Emperor growled. "We will activate the Sunbreaker." Gasps filled the chamber. The Sunbreaker was the Empire's last weapon. A massive device hidden within the capital's moon. It was designed to tear apart a star, or vaporize an entire fleet in seconds. It had never been used. Until now. Engineers activated the weapon. Energy gathered in the lunar structure. Space around it began to glow violently. Terran ships did not retreat. Admiral Volkov watched from her flagship. "Energy spike detected," her officer warned. "It will wipe out our entire forward fleet." Rena gave a small nod. "Release countermeasure." Moments before the Sunbreaker fired, something unexpected happened. The weapon shut down. Across the Imperial Command Center, alarms screamed. "Systems are failing. Control interface is locked." On the lunar base, engineers stared in horror at their screens. Human code had infiltrated the system weeks earlier, hidden inside captured Imperial data streams. The Sunbreaker had never been fully under Zorith control. It belonged to humanity now. Instead of firing outward, the weapon released its energy harmlessly into deep space, burning a distant empty sector of stars. The capital world was left defenseless. Kal-El realized the truth too late. The humans had planned for everything. Not just battles. Not just fleets. Everything. Terran ships moved forward slowly, surrounding the planet. Precision strikes disabled orbital defenses without destroying civilian zones. Military installations went dark one by one. There was no massive explosion. No dramatic final clash. Just systems shutting down. Power fading. Control slipping away. Within hours, the Emperor's palace lost contact with the remaining fleets. The giant empire that had ruled for 1,000 years, collapsed in silence. Kal-El was taken into custody, not executed. His throne room remained standing. His people were not enslaved. Instead, human representatives transmitted a galaxy-wide message. "The war is over," the ambassador announced. "All occupied systems are free. All forced labor programs are ended. Any species seeking independence will receive Terran protection." Across the galaxy, oppressed worlds erupted in celebration. But on Earth, there were no parades. Only quiet relief. Admiral Volkov stood beside the human ambassador as they looked down at the former Imperial capital from orbit. "It's done," she said softly. The ambassador nodded. "We warned them." Below, the fires of broken warships burned across the night sky. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had ended its greatest threat. And as the stars slowly grew quiet again, one truth became clear to every species watching. Humans do not start wars lightly. But when pushed, they finish them. And this time, the Empire had learned that lesson too late.